wanted to read a couple quotes that sort of indicate or illustrate dramatically the way people sort of wrote about Hosmer during this time period. So even before she had left for Italy, the abolitionist and reformer Lydia Maria Child, who was one of the very well-known authors in the United States in this time period, writes in a letter of introduction to Harriet Hosmer, "If she keeps on as she has begun, she will do much for the cause of womanhood." And then when Beatrice Tenchi toured the U.S. in 1867, in a review, Child wrote about her, "I rejoice that such a gem has been added to the arts," adding, "Especially do I rejoice that such a poetical conception of the subject came from a woman's soul, and that such finished workmanship was done by a woman's hand." And in the same article, she again explicitly connected Harriet's progress to the progress of all women, proclaiming the cause of womankind has much at stake with her. And Susan B. Anthony was similarly moved looking at the Beatrice Tenchi, writing, "In the accomplishment of that grand work of the sculptor's chisel, making that cold marble breathe and pulsate, Harriet Hosmer has done more to ennoble and elevate women than she possibly could have done by mere words. It matters not how godlike." So you can see there was this real sense of she needs to succeed to help all women succeed, and her success is success for all American women. And the way that Hosmer is written about as an American is in some ways very similar, and probably the most dramatic examples of this come when Hosmer's Zenobia comes to America in 1864. It's shown it opens in New York in November of 1864 at 625 Broadway, the day before the start of Sherman's March. It then moves up to Boston, where it's seen by thousands of people. The Boston papers report the numbers of crowds, almost like you would see the movie grosses now. It's like another 2,000 people saw the sculpture this week, and the number keeps growing. So the press used Zenobia and this sort of huge public response to it to depict sort of a refined, patriotic, Republican United States, and with a real emphasis on the Republican Union in the North. One article declared, "When an American sends from his studio, clearly, something which wakes a fine sympathy within us, it is pleasant to feel our patriotism, our growing love of art, and all our better instincts springing forward as if it were to clasp and hold it." Adding, "Miss Hosmer has sent such a token now, and her Zenobia speaks to us in tones of wonderful power and depth." And I feel particularly in the way Zenobia is written about in this time period, in the sort of last gasp of the Civil War, there's a real emphasis in that we are still a cultured and refined nation, and our appreciation of the statue really illustrates that, even though we're in the midst of the Civil War. And this is one of my favorite quotes that anyone ever said about Hosmer, because it sort of shows the heights to which the rhetoric would reach around her. So John Greenleaf Whittier, the poet and abolitionist, wrote, "The artist has been truly serving her country while working on her magnificent design abroad, as our soldiers in the field and our public officers in their departments." John Greenleaf, a dedicated abolitionist, is depicting Hosmer's, and it was often, they often also depicted her decision to live in Rome instead of Watertown as a huge patriotic sacrifice she was making for her country. And she depicted it publicly that way. She wrote about it as well, where privately she was like, "I'll never live in Massachusetts again." Which a feeling I can understand. But, so I wanted to sort of briefly also want to talk about her role in promoting herself. And she really was sort of a master of this. And certainly a key to her success was her ability to what we would call today network. Henry James wrote of her that she was above all a character, strong, fresh, and interesting, destined, whatever statue she made, to make friends that were better still than these at their best. So it's incredibly condescending, and he said several other condescending things about her, but there is a grain of truth to it that she did have a true talent for making friends, and she saw nothing wrong with going out of the way to make friends with people who were powerful and influential. And so these included the Brownings, Hawthorne, Charlotte Cushman, the Sedgwicks, where she attended school. That family supported her, including Catherine Sedgwick, throughout her career. And I think she must have been, incredibly charming too, because this comes out again and again in letters about her. But as she said, these friendships were genuine, but there is nothing like having friends at court. So she did more than just befriend people. She went out of her way to make sure that they wrote about her the way she thought she should be written about. In one letter she wrote to Child provides a dramatic example. When she was campaigning to get the commission for the Freedmen's Memorial to Abraham Lincoln, she asked her longtime supporter, to raise awareness of this effort. And so she writes a long description of the design, which you can see here. And it's actually incredibly interesting it's really interesting this almost got made and that she thought it would be really acceptable because it shows a depiction of African American history starting here with a sort of a half-naked slave in chains and ending with an armed African American Union soldier. So she writes a description of this to Child, and then she marks off the section of the letter she wanted publicized and wrote, and asked Child if she could publish it in one or two of the papers as quoted from a letter to yourself. It would seem infinitely easier to my modesty than to write my intentions in a more ceremonious and official form. So she wrote Child the description, and then she asked Child to act as if it's her own idea. Child, very influential writer, just has taken it upon herself to quote Hosmer's letter in these articles that she's publishing around the United States. Because Hosmer knew she had to act modest, even though she was actually not modest at all. And she also uses photographs to promote herself. This photograph on the top is probably one of the most famous pictures of Harriet Hosmer, and it appears lots of different places that really have very little to do with Hosmer. Here she is in her working clothes, which so disturbed Hosmer that he decided he said something along the lines of, "I can't look below her waist," because he was just so disturbed by this glance of her ankle. But he did ultimately say she's an artist, so I give her leave to act as she wishes. She had reported in 1859 that some of her fellow artists in Rome were in a rage over the mere possibility that she might win this commission for Benton, which was fought over quite fiercely. And when she did win the commission in 1860, her first instinct was to taunt her competitors with her victory, reveling in the thought of, in her words, collapsing their flues. Crowe, her patron, however, convinced her to take, in his words, a more wise and prudent route of gracious acceptance, because it really wasn't going to be acceptable for Hosmer, even though she created this tomboy, rebellious image of herself to actively taunt her male competitors. But instead what she does is circulate this picture of herself, which I think allows her to sort of brag, but in a much more sort of subtle, socially acceptable way. And in a way that in some ways emphasizes her control of her own artwork, and that was important because rumors were swirling around that Gibson, her mentor, or her stonecutters were really responsible for her work. But at the same time, make her look sort of very petite and charming. She can't look that threatening next to this huge sculpture. And this picture on the bottom is one that she's circulated later, around 1867, in which she's sort of surrounded by her workmen. And I think this again was sort of in the wake of these rumors that she doesn't do her own work, and by that time they'd sort of burst into public in kind of a scandal. And I think at first I was sort of confused by that she was actually then circulating the picture of her with her workmen. But I think that she does it because it really sort of shows her in control of her studio. And this one she distributed very widely, boasting to Crowe that it was a great success, and I don't know how many I may have given away if I had enough to dispose of. So I think it's an early form of social networking, or posting, your book reviews on Facebook, or she used this as a way to give people a memento of her work, and keep herself at the front of their minds. So I just want to sort of conclude by saying, Hosmer, like so many women from the 19th century, even, again, by the time she died, she was sort of fading from the public memory, and there she sort of stayed, by and large, until the 1970s, where the women's rights movement was sort of giving birth to the field of women's history and feminist art history. and people did start to do some really important work on her. And luckily, her best friend saved all the letters that Hosmer wrote her from the time they were teenagers until Hosmer dies in 1908. And since that woman's father was Hosmer's patron, she saved all the letters Hosmer sent him. So it's this remarkable collection. They saved everything, and then they donated it to the Schlesinger Library at Radcliffe, the Women's History Library at Radcliffe. So unlike many women, even many women who are incredibly famous, there was just this incredible source there where people did start to do work on Hosmer. And in the sort of, there seems to be a snowballing interest in her in recent years. There's been a book of poetry inspired by her. My aunt, Jody Culkin, and Kathy Gontranov, and I did an exhibit of Jody's work and Harriet Hosmer's work at PS 122. Patricia Cronin has done a series of watercolors inspired by Hosmer's work. I've now written a book about her. But I think there's sort of this growing knowledge about her. And someone asked me recently, well, has something come out about her that you didn't know? And, I do fear that that's going to happen, but I also really hope that does happen, because I think the more people know about her, the more there will be to learn about her. So just to conclude, if you want to know any more, I have a blog where I sort of post interesting facts about Hosmer. There's a Facebook page, and also feel free to email me. And this picture is me with Hosmer's sculpting tools, which are on display in the Watertown Public Library. The Crow family donated some of the materials to the Watertown Public Library, and it's there for everyone to see. All right, thank you all so much for coming.